in other news, it is extremely hot here for anybody who doesn't go outside in the UAE.
Hmm.
Eyes are burning up,
It's
burning
hot.
up here.
It's hot, but the corona didn't die in the heat. They keep saying every time keep changing that the corona
It's
has.
because it's the Delta variant, man, and now the Lambda variant. It's heat resistant. Not
Yeah,
doctors. Don't don't believe us.
like like
Uh,
it started with 25 degrees. We're like, okay, winter is gonna pass in the UAE. It's gonna corona is gonna be dead because by March or April starts getting warmer and nice. Summer we thought it's gonna die. We reached 50 here. No, they said it needs to die in like 55 or 56 degrees. So basically, we die for the corona to die. What's the use?
it's.
50, 56 degrees. I mean, come on.
I mean, it's it's funny in countries like Tunisia and Syria where people do not believe COVID is a thing or they don't care. Like the cases that are over there, it's like, okay, the only reason it seems worse than it is, I think, is just because they don't have the infrastructure to deal with sick people.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of, from what, because I have cousins, friends that are doctors that are stuck there, and they're saying, yeah, it's bad. Our hospitals are shit. Like we don't have the beds, we don't have the facilities to take care of anybody. But as far as like cases, it doesn't seem to be that like it doesn't seem to be India bad. There were like burning bodies in the streets. That was bad.
Mm.
So so I don't know, man. Like it seems like the extra like cautions and everything that maybe it's herd immunity. Maybe they just everyone got it and now like خلاص.
Or maybe
Only
the food.
the yeah, man, the food. السمن العربي. They cook with like animal fat, so it just gives you immunity. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
Ghee.
What else?
The
I guess
Chinese.
Syria is going to have to, yeah, Syria is going to have to get used to or deal with a new virus because now there's a new virus in China they just discovered.
Yeah, there's a new. But apparently they said it's not an outbreak yet, and they're doing something now that they should have done in the beginning, which is block China
Yet,
and from people coming
yet,
in or stuff.
yet, yet. The China. Are we going to really believe whatever the Chinese tell us? Like they did the first time? It's like, no, there's nothing going on in Wuhan. You crazy. Don't be silly. And then suddenly we're dying.
2 years later, we're here.
Yeah. Here's the thing. At the beginning of the pandemic, there were reports and people saying that this was a man-made virus and this whole thing about like some dude eating a bat and getting sick and passing it on to other humans or the bat passing it on to the person who ate it and then spread it around. That's not true. That it's a man-made virus and that actually originated in a virology lab that was in Wuhan.
Mm.
The story is there's a special research center in Wuhan that studies viruses.
Yeah.
This research center specializes in studying the corona type viruses. So it's a very interesting coincidence, seeing as in the in the city where they have this lab that study coronaviruses, suddenly was the epicenter of pandemic that has affected the world for 2 years. A lot of people aren't talking about that, at least not in this part of the world. Everyone still is talking about this guy who ate the bat, and like a lot of people aren't like reading into it. I don't think because I've heard it a lot from people in the West and people on like there's articles about it and people on other podcasts. Nobody from our side has like even acknowledged that being a possibility. At least not any news sources I've seen. So, what's your take on it? Have you heard about that? Did you think that's a possibility?
For me, I do believe that's what happened, in my own opinion, what you just said, because I mean, yes, bats do carry diseases, and I don't think anyone should eat bats. Uh, they don't have anything edible in them. I don't know why someone would eat that. But for example, the Ebola in Africa is also coming from a bat, but that's a different story. The blood of the bat, a guy touched his face or whatever, or he ate with his hand after he touched a dirty bat. That's what caused the Ebola. But I think there might be a possibility if someone, for example, it's a human error, let's say, between quotations, that this person works in a lab and somehow didn't sanitize properly after dealing with all the viruses and stuff, and went to this, they have this, what to call it, the live animal market in Wuhan,
The wet markets.
the wet market, yeah. So maybe they went there, they bought something, and just the virus was in their hands, or they didn't, as I said, they didn't sanitize properly, and they just touched whatever was there, and someone else touched it, and then it continued. This is in case of a human error, which maybe, but I don't. We don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. It's just
Yeah, I mean,
I said,
it's
but
it's.
I do believe
I'm
it's
just saying that there's a lot of arrows pointing into the direction that if you look deep enough, you'll find that this is likely. I can go out on a limb and say, or I want to go on a limb and say that it's like 90% likely that this is what happened, because there's also various reports. Again, I'll see if we can post this in the description of these studies or reports where uh, like in each lab, obviously, any world accredited lab, there's certain safety procedures and checks and inspections that need to be passed to show that this is up to code. Like, are you protecting against like outbreaks, mishandling? How are people coming in and out of the lab? All this stuff which you just mentioned.
yeah.
So there's a report saying that they failed these checks. That this lab in Wuhan failed these checks on like multiple points, and then like refused to have some inspector come and check it out in person. And there was just a bunch of fishy things that show that they weren't playing fair or playing like very transparent, or abiding by the rules. Who knows why? But then again, that's why a lot of people are like, well, numbers are down in China. I was like, dude, how can you like, how can you still believe anything that's come out of information wise coming out of China when their refusal to share the information in the first place caused
All of this, correct?
or
Yeah.
yeah, like if they were forthright and transparent from the beginning, then they could like other countries could have basically been
Prepared.
more prepared.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could have been prepared to deal with this situation. The last one pandemic of this scale was the Spanish flu back in like the 1910s.
19, yeah,
Nobody
20.
was alive then. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, no, mustahil.
Yeah.
Nobody could have even. But at least they would have had a plan,
Mm,
close down borders, blah blah blah. What you need to do, but because of their refusal to share information, them not being transparent, where we are now. So anybody who comes is like, well, numbers are down in China. These are down. The Chinese have it figured out. Shut the fuck up.
I mean,
Uh,
there are like I think I read it was like 5 countries or 6 countries that have zero cases, but the
that's
only
another
reason
thing, man. Yeah, continue. I'm sorry.
they have zero cases is because they're just like nobody knows of this place except for the people of from that country. Like for example, San Marino, I think. I don't even know where that is. It's like
Yeah, they're like this country that's the size of Khaldi doesn't have any cases. The fuck out of here. What else? Like at the also during when like Trump was still president in the States and everyone was shitting on Trump because it was like the new thing to do just to shit on everything Trump does. I'm not defending Trump. I'm just saying that's what it was.
mm-hmm.
Uh, like I think he wanted to stop or yeah stop all flights from China, and then everyone was like, "You're racist," because Trump's racist. So they say. So they say. Uh, But then New Zealand did the same thing. It like stopped all flights everywhere, and then within like a few weeks to a month, I forget the timeline. But then New Zealand was like, "We're corona free,"
Yeah.
and then it was like, "See, New Zealand got their shit together." I was like, "You're gonna compare New Zealand, which is in like bumblefuck nowhere in the middle of the Pacific? Nobody goes there. Anybody says who's they go to New Zealand is a liar."
I mean,
Compared to like,
I think it's like 20 hours from here.
yeah, who goes there, man? That's like a trip, man. If I want to, if
It's
I
like
want to go to like Europe or Syria, I'm like, man, 3 hour flight. That's an
no,
ordeal,
and bro, you know what's funny is that you actually miss 2 days of your life in a plane because one, you go
bro.
you go ahead of time. Two, you spend 20 hours in the plane. Like like
We're time travelers, man.
yeah, like you go 2 days in the future. It's
To eat some kiwis. But they kept comparing New Zealand, small country, which is fine. I have nothing against New Zealand. I'm just saying the comparison is not, and this is disingenuous and it's not fair.
mm,
When you're like comparing New Zealand to like Europe or Italy or Spain or the United States, where they're like, wow, people in Italy are dying and people in Spain are dying. America doesn't have their shit together. They have 200,000 cases. I was like, man, you need to do the ratio between the population and like the rate of infected and all that. Plus, it's like what New York was on lockdown for the longest time. Well, it's New York. It's New York City. Everyone goes there.
yeah,
It's literally like a
Milan.
transfer hub for the world.
It's Milan of the US.
The Milan. Yeah, man. El Milan.
Yeah.
It's an inside joke, guys. Maybe one day we'll tell you about it.
It's
And Milan's brother. Oh. Anyway,
Dogo is
that's a nice
judging you.
hat you have, man. That's a
Thank you.
nice hat. Anyway, back on topic. Uh, and people like in Italy, they were like, "Well, Italy doesn't have figured out because Italy's population was all elderly." I think like I don't know the exact percentage, but like a majority of their population was like
Yeah,
over
above.
60.
Yeah.
So they were just like dropping like flies, unfortunately. Uh, yeah, so that's that was just another thing that pissed me off whenever people were talking about like infection rates and how other countries were doing so much better than like Europe or like the US. It's not that I'm being patriotic or anything. It's just if you want to do a comparison, do it fairly.
But also another thing, um, what to call it? Uh, I think it's also the awareness of people in the beginning. A lot of people would just, they're like, I mean, we were one of them, you and I. When we went to the
Yeah.
Spartan, we went to the Spartan race. They're like, Corona, Corona. We're like, nah, it's just another flu.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, and we and we went and we did the thing, the Spartan race. So I think in the beginning, just everybody, because we didn't know what this is. We just thought it was like uh, we related back to the SARS in I think it happened in the early 2000s, and
Yeah, what was it? There was another one, the Zika virus.
I wasn't aware of this one. I just
See,
know this.
nobody remembers the Zika virus.
I remember the SARS because back then SARS was like the thing, and it was like what 700,000 or something. Just I mean, of course, it's not a small number. People died, but uh, it was a small number compared to just the first 3 months or 4 months of Europe and America.
Yeah.
Uh, but the SARS, the thing why it was less because the travel wasn't as much as now. The world wasn't open in 2000, early 2000, as it is now in 2020 or back in 2020 and now 2021. So I think these are the reasons why we just a little bit screwed up with the situation because we kept relating to the SARS and we're like, oh, SARS. I mean, nobody, did you quarantine? Do you remember quarantining or staying at home in SARS? No, we used to go to tourist club and play. That's what I remember.
Yeah, that's like we said that once we heard about it in China, like was it in like October, November, December? It was like this stuff in China.
Mm.
There's a new virus. They're like, ah, those crazy Chinese. They're at it again. Them and their viruses.
Yes. And then
It's
February.
another one at it. Man, they're collecting like viruses like Pokemon cards, man. Just keep coming up with new ones.
It's yeah. Yeah. الله يهدي الجميع.